On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, let's talk about what Chet Holmgren said in the New York Times. Let's talk about the Thunder frustrating narrative from the national media and your mailbag questions, including what the Thunder should do at the deadline, the offseason, the draft, and how they can get even better within this season. We'll talk about it all on today's Locked On Thunder podcast, your team every day.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at ThunderousIntentions.com. Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by FanDuel, we're going to dive into the frustrating narrative around Oklahoma City, Chet Holmgren, and his comments in the New York Times, and your mailbag questions. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Thank you so much for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Jam-packed week ahead. We recapped the Nuggets game yesterday. Today we're going to do a mailbag podcast, talk about what Chet said to the New York Times, and talk about a frustrating narrative that's being surrounded of Oklahoma City. Tomorrow, we're going to have our good friend, Richard Stamen at MavsDraft on Twitter, discuss the NBA draft and how the Thunder are positioned in it now and what they can possibly do in this upcoming NBA draft. And then, of course, Thursday, a Hawks recap, and Friday, a Stock Watch report before we recap the Cavs game on Saturday and then get you set for another 5-show-a-week day and after every single game right here on Locked On Thunder. So Chet Holmgren, he had an article about him in the New York Times over the weekend, and there are some bullet points I want to talk about. You should go read the entire article because it's a fantastic article. But the big thing that I want to point out is that within the article, you can really tell how mature Chet Holmgren is, how polished he is, and how he thinks the game. Whenever he says in this article that he doesn't have to be Superman, that he can just come in and figure out how to get 5 points better because the team isn't getting blown out. You know, they're losing by 4 points or winning by 4 points. Just how can he get the team over that hump? I think that it really shows the maturity level of Chet Holmgren, which has been brought up by Mark and brought up by Sam Presti and brought up by some of his teammates. And, you know, you've never had a tangible story to put that praise onto. But I think that him understanding that, yes, it's frustrating. Yes, I want to be playing right now. Yes, I'm hurt. And yes, I cannot wait to get back on the floor. But whenever that time does come and you do get back on the floor, don't try to do too much. Just try to fit into this team and try to get them better. And I think it'll be a seamless transition. There's a few reasons why. The first reason why is that one of Oklahoma City's best defensive lineups, as they sit right now with the top 10 defense in the NBA, they sit at 9th. One of their best defensive lineups is SGA, Lou Dort, Josh Giddey, J-Dub, and Mike Muscala. Well, you're going to replace Mike Muscala, who is not a particularly great defender in general. Now, he still plays really good drop coverage in the pick and roll, and he still walls up at the rim pretty well without fouling, but he's not this elite defender or great shot blocker, or he doesn't really do anything excellent defensively. He does a lot of things really well. Like that's kind of the point with Muscala. So you're going to replace him with Chet Holmgren, who's going to provide everything OKC needs. He's going to provide rim protection. He's going to provide rebounding. He's going to provide floor spacing. He's going to be an offensive weapon for you in the half court the way that Muscala is. He's going to provide outlet passing off these rebounds and allow you to continue to push the tempo, which is where you found success over the last few weeks. And for Chet to acknowledge, hey, it's not that I have to go out here and play outside of myself or do too much. I just have to figure out how to help this team get 4 more points a night. That shows, I think, great maturity. And I think that it's going to be fabulous to see him fit in with the rest of this Thunder roster. So the article was great. Go read the entire thing at the New York Times. But I want to talk also, before we get into your mailbag questions, about this narrative around OKC. And this is not just the national media. It's been happening within the Thunder fan base as well. I don't really like the pushback that some of these wins are getting. For starters, you can't, and this part's only for the national media, you can't be saying that the Thunder are the black eye of the league and the Thunder are trying to lose games and Sam Presti should be investigated because they're just trying to purposefully lose and it's a disgrace to the sport and it's what Sam Hinkie did. You can't be saying all of that and then also discrediting them whenever they actually do win games. And as fans and as media, so this is for both parties, we can't sit around all season long and say, the NBA, it's just not the same as it was back in my day. Back in my day, Dirk would play with the flu. Back in my day, guys would play 82 games a night. John Havlicek would run from a train to the arena back in my day to play in a game. And now it's just load management. It's just stars never play. We can't be saying that all year long. And then when the Thunder rack up some wins, say, well, they only did it against the teams that didn't have their stars. That's the whole point of the thing. Like, you can say that for every single team. Find me the team that has played up until this point all of their games against fully healthy rosters. Well, the Thunder also have not been fully healthy, by the way, but find me the team that has played all 41, 42, 45 games, whatever the point that they're at in their season, that have played all their games against a fully healthy squad. And to further kind of prove the point, none of these teams are just resting guys. Like, the point of, you beat the Grizzlies without Ja. The Thunder didn't have Josh Giddey or SGA, and Ja got ejected. Like, Ja played. He just got ejected. That happens. Kevin Durant got hurt. Like, legitimately, Kevin Durant is hurt, and he's still not returned to the floor. Tyrese Halliburton, legitimately hurt. Jokic, legitimately hurt, nursing an injury where he was playing off and on. No team has even rested a player against OKC because even going back to that October date with the Clippers where we thought, wow, the Clippers are not taking the Thunder seriously. They're not playing Kawhi in either game. They only played Paul George once. That wasn't a Thunder thing. That was a Clippers thing. That's just how they're operating. It's just how they're handling their season. So you can't hold up, the Thunder are winning, but they've beaten, the Nets without KD, the Pacers without Halliburton, the Nuggets without Jokic. You can't hold that up and still complain that stars never play anymore in general and then still complain that the Thunder were a tanking team. You can't have it both ways. If stars don't play, that's just the way the cookie crumbles then. On any given night, you might play a team that is resting guys or has guys injured. That's just how it goes. And again, it's not been rest, it's been injuries. And that happens every single year. That happens every single game. There's somebody hurt. Again, in tomorrow's Hawks game, the injury report's not out yet, but Jeremiah Robinson-Earl and Pokusevski still hurt. Chet Holmgren still hurt. The Hawks will, of course, have some people hurt as well. That's what happens every single game. And when it doesn't happen, it's not as though that in these articles that you're writing or tweets that you're sending that you're giving them extra credit for beating the fully healthy Celtics or beating the fully healthy Sixers. You're just looking at, the Nuggets didn't have Jokic and the Pacers didn't have Halliburton. Well, first of all, the Pacers and Thunder are pretty much the exact same team. So not having Halliburton was a detriment to them, but it wasn't as though it was like some upset of the year to beat the Pacers with or without Halliburton. And the Nets didn't have KD. Yeah, the Nets haven't had KD, the entire last couple of weeks. So then any team who's beating the Nets over these last few weeks so that Kyrie has been leading the ship, just that one doesn't count for them. And then again, the Grizzlies thing is so disingenuous because Ja was ejected. He did play. He just got ejected, which is out of anyone's control, even Ja's in that case. I don't think he warranted an ejection. And the Thunder didn't have their two guys either. So I just think that this is life in the NBA. Would I have rather watched Tyrese Halliburton play last week? Absolutely. I was circling that game on the calendar. We were talking about it for weeks on end in the media room, saying, I can't wait for Tyrese Halliburton to be here and watch him play in person. I would have loved for him to play. But life in the NBA suggests they're not going to play 82 games anymore. And they're going to get hurt, sadly. And they're going to miss games, sadly. And so the Thunder did what they had to do, and they took care of business. And that should be the end of discussion. Because they've done it both ways. They've beaten fully healthy teams. They've beaten teams that were lacking a star or two. They've also lost to teams who were lacking a star or two. They lost to the Heat by 1 point when the Heat didn't have Bam, didn't have Tyler Hero, didn't have Kyle Lowry, only had Jimmy Butler, and had a team that went 40 for 40 at the free throw line. That's life in the NBA. That's life in the association. Coming up, we'll talk about your mailbag questions, but first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at FanDuel, folks. FanDuel is incredible. The NFL playoffs are here. We're excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they are the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better because they have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. So new customers can join today and get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all the bets from the money line to the point spread and player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout in the same game parlay. There are so many great bets even this weekend for FanDuel right now. You can bet on individual NBA games today. You can also bet on the future NFL games, which are going to be happening this weekend. So, like, for example, today, you can bet on Celtics Heat. Celtics 4-point underdogs on the road, second night of a back-to-back. I'm still rocking with the Celtics +4, but you can also bet on the NFC or AFC Championship game. I'll take Bengals +1.5 in Kansas City. I just think that they have the Chiefs number. Sadly, I'm a Chiefs fan, so hopefully I'm wrong, but we'll see how it goes this weekend. Bottom line is, you can go right now and do not miss out. By placing your first $5 bet, you can get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. It's also on the app, which is safe, secure, and easy to use. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook and partner of the NFL. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode. Let's dive into your mailbag questions. So the first one comes from Broylan. When the Thunder are seemingly pushing for the playoffs and away from tanking, does a Muscala trade make sense, and does it sound like a good move? I'm not. So you set this up in a weird way, in my opinion, because Muscala is a good asset for the Thunder in terms of winning games. Like his plus minus numbers are top of the roster. Him and Isaiah Joe are crazy good at plus minus numbers in terms of how well they impact the team when they're on the floor. But no, I don't think that they'll trade anyone at the deadline besides maybe flipping Bazley for like a same level of player who's on an expiring deal and maybe a second round pick they give away to do that or whatever. But I think that it's just Bazley that's on the block and no one else, in my opinion. At Schwarzlach Isaac, how much of an improvement is Chet going to be? Can OKC have a top 5 lineup in the NBA when they add Chet Holmgren in? I think Chet Holmgren's going to be really good. And I think that Chet Holmgren is everything this team needs and everything that Shai needs and everything that Giddey needs. He not only fits in the construct of how this team is designed to play, but he fits in the construct of how the two guards, the two stars, are designed to play. He can pop trailing threes whenever the team gets out in transition and maybe nothing quite materializes, so you stop at the nail and then pop it back out to him top of the key and he knocks down a three. Like, that's going to be a money play for the Thunder all year long. It was a money play for the Thunder back in Summer League whenever him and Josh Giddey played together in Summer League. I think that offensively you can do so much stuff. You can let him cook in the low post on the block. You can let him cook in the high post. You can find him on catch and shoots. He can create a little bit. He's versatile. He can defend because of his length and his size. Even if he gets beat by smaller, faster, quicker players, that length and understanding of how to protect the rim and when to jump and how to block shots, like that's a legitimate tool that he can use to make up for if he does get beat off the dribble on the perimeter. And then, of course, playing down low, he'll be a really good rim deterrent, to which the Thunder desperately need right now, that they don't have because of the injuries and because of course, Chet not being healthy right now. And I tried to temper expectations as best that I can with this about Chet, but as long as he's fully healthy, as long as he's fully kind of rehabbed from this injury, there's no reason to believe that it can't work because we are seeing it work with Mike Muscala. Like I said, Mike Muscala's plus minus is incredible. Like whenever he's on the floor, he makes a positive impact. And no offense to Muscala, but you're going to replace Muscala with a much better version of him. Like you're going to go from Muscala, who can do the things Chet can do well, to a guy who can do what Chet can do excellently because he's Chet Holmgren. Like you're going to go from doing it well and doing it good enough to doing it excellent. And that's just going to change everything about this team. At vegan_Harry, hypothetically, Jesus. Ousmane Dieng goes off the rest of the year and looks legitimate. Who will be starting at 5 next year? I'm confused by this question set up because I think that Dieng is not a 5, and I think that Chet is a 5. So I think that you were alluding to like Chet playing the 4. Chet will not play the 4. Chet will be the center on this team. Like, I'm not sure how many people still like envision him as a power forward. He's a center. He's going to play center on this team. He's going to be the 5, and you're working and flushing everything out around him. It is hard to imagine that Ousmane will play good enough in the last few weeks of this season, the second half of the season as he's healthy now, to warrant him as a starter next year above J-Dub, because J-Dub looks fantastic. But Ousmane can be a really, really good player for the second unit, and this will be, if Ousmane hits, this starts to become an embarrassment of riches, because if you can pass the baton from J-Dub to Ousmane Dieng, from Josh Giddey to Trey Mann, if he can start hitting shots, like if he ever becomes the scorer that we think, you can pass the baton to these guys, then it all starts to work out, and it all starts to, you start to see kind of how this team can just be able to boat race certain teams because they just simply have more depth. So like Jeremiah Robinson-Earl and Pokusevski, they played really well this year, and they played like true contributors and true high-end talent guys in the terms of rotational pieces. But they're not going to start over Chet Holmgren. So Chet Holmgren will pass the baton to Poku or Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, and then you'll take out J-Dub and put in the other one. You'll put in Jerry as center, take out J-Dub, put in Poku at power forward, take out Giddey at small forward, put in Ousmane Dieng, take out Lou Dort and put in Isaiah Joe, and then take out SGA and put in Trey Mann or whoever you want the backup point guard to be in this scenario, or just stagger SGA and Giddey, of course, as you have been doing all season long for Mark. So you're seeing how this roster really becomes an embarrassment of riches, and it becomes an embarrassment of so many great talents to continue to stay on the floor whenever we haven't even discussed the first-round pick this year. Like, the 2023 draft is loaded. Even with all these wins, you're still going to get a really good player in the draft, and you might even trade up in the draft with all these first-round picks you have in the future, especially in 24, because you can't take all four first-round picks in 24. Like, this team, if Dieng hits, if Trey Mann becomes the scorer that we think he can become and gets out of this cold streak, like, if they all hit, this is going to be one of the best teams in basketball. At _Bushman, have the team dietitians considered sending Poku and Chet Holmgren to Del Rancho? I've never been to Del Rancho. I assume it's a restaurant like that's really good and proteiny. I'm assuming that the dietitians have factored in everything regarding Chet and Poku, but it'd be fun to see them out there just hammering tacos or something one day. At Caleb DA452221, would you consider Lou Dort a non-negotiable trade player? Untouchable? No, I wouldn't consider him untouchable. I would consider him hard to find a trade partner in the sense of, like, Shai, Giddey, Chet, J-Dub, like, to me, those are untouchables. Like there's just nothing that you can give up that warrants giving up 4 more years of Shai, that warrants giving up 7 more years of Josh Giddey, that warrants giving up 8 more years of J-Dub, 8 more years of Chet. There's nothing another team can give up that warrants that. For Lou Dort, there technically is a price that another team might be willing to pay that would be like, okay, we like Lou Dort, but this price is a premium that we have to sell him at. I do think, though, that getting that price is a bit unrealistic, because even for Lou Dort's limitation at rim finishing, even for Lou Dort's streaky three-point shooting, which I think gets better as you move him down the offensive ladder, you can't just replace Lou Dort. To replace Lou Dort, a team would have to give you someone better than Lou Dort. And even for his limitations, Who realistically would teams give you that's better than Lou Dort? Now, let me be clear. There are many players in the NBA better than Lou Dort, like John Morant, like LeBron. Those guys are off the table in Lou Dort discussions. Who would another team be willing to give up to get Lou Dort in return that would then be worthwhile for the Thunder to cash in? That, to me, it's not that Lou Dort's untouchable. It's that the perfect storm of a trade involving Lou Dort doesn't seem realistic to materialize. Now, the reason I also say he's not untouchable is because the Thunder do not have that many sweeteners. So if we do all agree that Shai, that Giddey, that Chet, that J-Dub are untouchables, and we do all agree that you cannot just overwhelm teams with picks alone to go get what you might want, who is left out there to be a sweetener in a trade? Trey Mann, Lou Dort, those are your guys that are sweeteners as a trade chip. And so I don't think it's out of the question that Lou Dort gets traded eventually. However, I still don't think it's likely because it would truly take the perfect storm of everything kind of coming together all at once. That's kind of how I feel about it. Coming up, we'll talk about your mailbag questions, including the 2023 draft, Darius Bazley, some trade targets for the deadline, J-Dub's trajectory, and was the Sengun trade bad for OKC? Did Sam Presti make a mistake? That's all coming up. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode. Check it out today, wherever you get your podcast from, including on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Ryland_Styles, at Kenny L. Moore. With Ousmane Dieng being so young, where does he rank in the 2023 big board, which is a draft class that I really, really like? So where would I put him on my big board if we just kind of erase this entire season and put him back in the draft pool? Where would he be? So let's just go through it. Victor Wembanyama, this is going to be let's just go through Tankathon's bid board because I don't want to reveal mine yet until we do a podcast about it. So this is from Tankathon's big board. Is he better than Victor Wembanyama? No. Is he better than Scoot Henderson? No. Is he better than the Thompson twins? You'd probably still take the Thompson twins over Ousmane Dieng, obviously. Better than Brandon Miller? You'd probably still take Brandon Miller. Better than Cam Whitmore? I'd still take Cam Whitmore. Better than Nick Smith Jr.? Both interesting. Both very interesting. I think that people would rather have the flyer on Nick Smith Jr. than Ousmane Dieng. Better than Keontae George? For me, I would say that I'd rather have Ousmane Dieng than Keontae George. I would say that I'd rather have Ousmane Dieng than Carson Wallace, than Grady Dick, than Chet Howard, than Anthony Black, than Kyle Flipkowski, than Derek Whitehead, than Travion Smith. I would say I'd rather have them. Jerice Walker, another name that people really love. I think it'd be really close. I think you can go either way. For me personally, I'd rather have what Ousmane Dieng can be because I've watched him up close in the G League and seen kind of the flash. And before this injury, we saw his best NBA game against the Hawks where he looked really, really good. The defense that he provides and the scoring that he has potential to flash. I just really like Dieng. So what do we get to? 8 names that I would put ahead of him. 7 names that I'd put ahead of him. But it's still, Ousmane Dieng would be right where he was last year, I think, pretty much, because of those coin flips that I mentioned. So pretty much at 11th, where he was last year. At TBrook05, what is Bazley's defined role moving forward, and can we expect Isaiah Joe to be part of their core? So for Darius Bazley, I don't think that he has a role in OKC next year. For him as a person, as a player and independent of the Thunder, his role should be this incredible switchable defender that can switch 1 through 5, that can really lock down an island and also play really good help defense and help rebound and play great transition defense. And then offensively, he's just this cutting wing that's a rim runner and pick and roll and really just tries to get his way to the basket without having to dribble his way there and create his own path there. I think that he can use his athleticism a lot better offensively. And as I've been pointing out, is that a Bazley problem or is it a Thunder problem? Are the Thunder not putting him in that position or is he not accepting that position? We're never going to know the truth, but I have to imagine that the Thunder were the ones putting him in that camping in the corner position the last couple of years, which is not at all advantageous for his skill set. And hopefully he will kind of break out of that mold. And he has been playing very well this last month. So, but still, even with that last month, I don't think that he'll be in OKC next year. Next question was from the same person, in the same question. Can we expect Isaiah Joe to become a part of the core? Defining what you mean by core, we can get kind of in the mud there. Will he be on the team next year? Yes. Will he be on the team the year after that? I think yes. And then you start to have so much roster turnover because of these draft picks that it's kind of up in the air. But obviously, as an offensive boost to this roster, he's a huge upgrade that is not going to be easily replaced. And as I mentioned on yesterday's podcast, he shows some things defensively, despite his size, that make me believe he can stay on the floor and not just get hunted, which was a big fear early on in the season. Was, okay, can this guy just get hunted on defense and then played off the floor that way? Last game against the Nuggets, where it was a playoff environment and it came down the stretch, I was very comfortable with Isaiah Joe on the floor because of what he showed defensively, which I went into detail on yesterday. At only Roberto 1324, what are some low-key trades OKC can make before the deadline? Again, I don't think that they're going to do anything, but for the sake of the question, I would love to try to see them get Mo Bamba. I would love to try to get them to see a flyer on somebody. I don't think that they're going to, and I don't think that they should, but for the sake of the question, my low-key trade target would be Mo Bamba. At mduke05, does basically have a chance to stay on the roster? I don't think so, because of just the writing being on the wall. And even if they keep him past the deadline, I think that they just let his contract expire, because who else are you going to move on from? Like, it just comes down to that. Like, even if he's on the team past the 9th deadline, if you re-sign him, who are you then waiving to get your 23 first-round pick on the roster? It's not going to be Shai. It's not going to be Dort, not going to be Chet, not going to be Giddey, not going to be Dieng, not going to be J-Dub, not going to be Muscala. If you re-sign Bazley, it won't be Bazley. It won't be Poku. It won't be Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. It won't be Kenny Hustle. So will it be Wiggins, Joe, Trey Mann? Who will it be? Because it can't be Omarui or Lindy Waters on a two-way deal. They're not in a roster spot. So who will it be? Sadly, for Bazley, the best, easiest, and deserving option would be to just not resign Bazley, because you have to cut the other players or decline their club deal in terms of Muscala, and they've warranted a spot on this roster more so than Bazley has to this point. So I just don't think that it's going to be a fit long term for OKC and Bazley, and I think that's a good thing for Bazley, because I think that with a change of scenery, Bazley can be really good. Like, I still think that Bazley can be a really, really good NBA player. At NJH Holdings, what is J-Dub's trajectory? I really think that J-Dub can be an all-star caliber player. Now, again, all-star caliber player is exactly what that sounds like, caliber of player. He might not make an all-star team. Like Mike Conley was an all-star caliber player. He didn't make an all-star game until, the COVID season? Like, the year after the bubble, I should say. Just because, let's say this team gets really, really good, and they win a ton of games. Shai's going to be an all-star. If they get really, really good and they're winning a ton of games, Chet Holmgren is likely playing really, really well. He's going to be an all-star because of the preconceived expectations of him, and he'll for sure get it over J-Dub. And you've got to be just excellent. I mean, excellent to get a third all-star. And the way Josh Giddey's playing right now, he could be an all-star caliber player. The way J-Dub's playing right now, he could be an all-star caliber player. But you can't send 3-4 guys to an all-star game from the same team. And so it's just how the cookie crumbles with the fact of how all-star rosters work. But can he be seen in the same tier as all-stars? I think he absolutely can, because he can score at all three levels, because he's so patient as a playmaker, because his length and size and measurements give me hope for his defensive side of the floor, and the fact that Mark has pointed out how good he can be defensively. I think that they're going to spend the whole summer in training camp next year working on continuing to improve his defense. I think this defense has improved even within this season. So I'm really high on J-Dub. At MV Pot, who would you rather keep, Wiggins or Mann? This is an odd pairing. I appreciate it because it's a very thoughtful pairing. But who's playing better this moment? I think Wiggins is playing way better this moment. Who has the higher ceiling? I think that Trey Mann has a higher ceiling. And at that point, you probably lean ceiling. But yeah, so I would lean ceiling with Mann. But I love Aaron Wiggins. At Black Dolphin, do you think the Thunder make any trades? I do not think that. I would not predict that. At Trevor Huey 2, Do the Thunder look to make a win-now move in the offseason, or wait until the deadline the following season once they see how Chet Holmgren plays? I don't think that they'll do anything crazy this offseason. I could be wrong. Sam Presti has shocked me many times before, but I would not envision any blockbuster moves this summer. And I'm not sure I envision blockbuster moves in general, because if you believe in the development of Dieng and J-Dub and Giddey and Shai and Chet, like you're no longer a all-in superstar move away. You're just a all-in rotational piece away. Like you're just an all-in veteran to tie the roster together move away. So that might be just what the Thunder need, and they don't need to go get a superstar. They need to go get a veteran. They need to go get a Steven Adams, like what Memphis did, to tie their roster together. That's just kind of where I'm at with the Thunder in terms of all-in moves. And then the last question, at MK325491, was the Alperen Sengun trade bad for OKC? No. And I'm going to say this with explaining this. Sengun's a really good player. A really good player. And I think that he's going to be really good for Houston. But it's the same way I feel about Jabari Smith. I think that Jabari Smith's a good player. I think that Sengun's a really good player. I think that Jabari Smith is not playing to his level at Houston because of the construct of the roster around him and the play style around him. I think if you drop Jabari Smith Jr. in OKC, he gets better at decision-making, he gets better with the ball in his hands, and he gets set up a lot better by Josh Giddey and by SGA because he's in a better organization, he's in a better flow, he's in a better system, and the talent around him elevates him. Because he's going to be put with two really good playmakers. With Josh Giddey's elite passing, with SGA's really high playmaking, and also his gravity that opens up the floor for other players. And we know that Jabari Smith can knock down threes. So I think Jabari Smith Jr. would look awesome in OKC, where he doesn't look awesome yet in Houston. With Alperen Sengun's a really, really good player, but he doesn't fit the mold of what OKC wants to do. And there's going to be players like that all the time. Like there's going to be players who, on other teams, they look fantastic. Like Trae Young, he is fantastic. Like he's a really, really good player. I don't think that Trae Young could play for OKC. I don't think that they want a guy who just has the ball stick to him on offense, who can't play off ball, who isn't very versatile on either end of the floor, and who can't play defense. They don't want that kind of player. However, that kind of player is still really good for Trae Young and really good for the Hawks. And so while Sengun is really good, it's just not the way the Thunder want to operate or play. So the Thunder didn't make a mistake. He doesn't fit their play style, but he's still good. Just doesn't fit their play style. Just doesn't fit their team. So no, he doesn't fit their team. And so you traded Sengun, and then you use those assets to go get Ousmane Dieng and buy that first-round pick. And Ousmane Dieng fits the profile of what you want a Thunder player to be. If he hits, he's going to be a really good defender that can switch 1 through 5. He's going to be a really good offensive player that can score at all 3 levels and make decisions with the ball in his hand. Like he's going to fit with what you want. And Sengun fits with what the Rockets want. Sometimes that's just the end of it. It doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, this team got fleeced or that team got fleeced. No, they just do what's best for them and they move forward. I think that both teams do what's best for them. And then you move forward and let it lie. Tomorrow's show, draft show with Richard Stamen, always a fun time. Tune in for that. Thursday, recap the Hawks game. Friday, stock watch. Saturday, Cavs recap. Monday, we do it again with the Warriors recap and then take you through the entire week yet again and after every single game. So subscribe anywhere you get your podcast from. And until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.